In section 13-3, we're going to be reporting withholding and payroll taxes. We're going to use a form called 941, which is an employer's quarterly federal tax return. We're going to go through each of these, the information for these 3 months, and our company is called Audio Solutions. So we have January, February, and March, our total earnings, our total federal income tax withheld, the employee Social Security taxes, and the employee Medicare taxes. We have our company address here in instructions A, the employer identification number. Each employer has a specific number assigned to them, and then we have total number of employees 6. So we're going to need that information to fill in our form. Our instructions say to prepare a Form 941 for Audio Solutions for the first quarter of the year, and a quarter is obviously 3 months. Use the preparation date of April 24th. Sign your name as the manager of the company. So up here in these fill-in-the-blank drop-down boxes, we are going to just simply fill in our information. So we are working with Audio Solutions. The date ended is March 31st, the end of the first quarter. Our address was the Sandpiper Street. Our employer number was the 70 dash number, and we are on Ormond Beach, Florida. So that's our information just at the beginning that we type in. And then a lot of this looks very similar to any kind of a tax form that you have to file for your own personal taxes, and this is one that the employer would have to fill in. So we're going to start by looking back at the instructions, and we see that we have total earnings for our 3 months. We have to add these 3 numbers together. So we add those together and we get 33,800. So these boxes, these blank lines here have drop downs, which really does help us here. So 33,800 is what we get for our total wages and tips plus other compensation. So just total wages is all we have to worry about there. Then we have the second line that we're going to be worried about is line 3, total income tax withheld. And we're going back to our instructions each time to look at our numbers, and we're looking at the federal income tax withheld. So we have to add those 3 numbers together, and when we get our addition correct in our drop down here, we get $2,366. Adjustment of withheld income tax for preceding quarters of this calendar year, we don't have to worry about that, so that's just 0. Adjusted total income tax withheld, line 3 as adjusted by line 4, so we're just simply carrying down that same number, the 2366. Taxable Social Security wages. So now we are looking at the total wages that we earn, so the 33,800, and we're going to multiply by 12.4%. And you're probably wondering why. We thought Social Security was 6.2. But that's 6.2 from the employee and the employer, which adds up to 12.4. So now we're going to multiply this 33,800 by 12.4%, or they even give you the decimal 0.124. And when we do that, our answer should be the 4191.20. You should do the multiplication here though, so you understand where that number came from. Social Security, taxable Social Security tips, we have no tips here, so that's just 0. And we carry that 0 over when we multiply. And taxable Medicare wages, the same number, 33,800. And we know that Medicare is 1.45, but that's employee and employer. So 1.45 plus 1.45 is 2.9, and our decimal is 0.029. So we're going to multiply 33,800 by 0.029, and we do that math and get $980.20. Our next step says to total Social Security and Medicare taxes. It tells us to add lines 6B, 6D, and 7B. So these are what we are adding. So there's 4191.20 plus 980.20, and we should get 5171.40. Line 9, adjustment of Social Security Medicare taxes. It says to see instructions for required explanation. We're not going to be getting into any of this, so for our purposes we're just going to put 0 there because we're not going to be getting into that detail. Adjusted Social Security and Medicare taxes, line 8 as adjusted by line 9. So since we didn't have anything there, we had a 0, we're just going to carry that 5171 back down here. Line 11, total taxes, add lines 5 and 10. Be careful you don't think it says 5 through 10. It's just 5 and 10. So right here, the 2366 plus the 5171.40. So here we should get 7537.40. Line 12, advance earned income credit. Payments made to employees. We're not going to worry about that in this chapter, so that's going to be 0. Line 13, net taxes, subtract line 12 from line 11. So we're just going to still end up with the same number as above. Line 14, total deposits for this quarter, including overpayment applied prior quarter. So for line 14, it's going to be this same number, the $75.37.40. Balance due, subtract line 14 from 13, and we're going to get 0. Here it says semi-weekly scheduled depositors. We are not doing monthly scheduled depositors. Complete lines 17, columns A through D. We are going to do this. So right here, we have to put a V in that box to indicate a check mark. Remember, the instructions up here say to type a V to indicate a check mark. Alright, this next step might seem a little bit tricky, but what we have to do is decide how much our first month liability, second month liability, and third month liability, and then total for this quarter. So here's our first, second, and third month. So what we have to figure out is what the amount of federal tax liability that we have here. So we have to add our federal tax, we have to add 2 times our Social Security amount, and 2 times our employee Medicare tax withheld, because remember it's employer and employee for both of these amounts. So we're going to take the 731, we're going to add the 647.28 plus another 647.28 plus 151.38, and then add that again, 151.38, to get a total for that month. And again, this is a nice drop down menu, so check your adding. So that should equal 2328.32. And we're going to do the same thing for the next 2 months. We're going to add the federal tax 1 time, and the Social Security twice, and the Medicare twice. And when we do that for the second month, we should get the 2443 number. And then the third month, same routine. 1 time with the federal, 2 times with the Social Security, and 2 times with the Medicare. And our number there should equal 2765.20. Finally, what we have to do is add our 3 numbers up for the first 3 months and get the total liability for this quarter. So we're going to be adding these 3 numbers, and we're going to come up with 7537.40. And a good way to check to make sure you did everything correctly is whatever number you get here for our total deposits for this quarter should be the same here as when you add those 3 numbers together. So that's a good check to make sure you're doing it correctly. Finally, we just have to have our student name here for our signature. Our title was the manager, and the date was the end of this quarter for 4/24. So that concludes our 13-3 work together. It does look trickier than it really is. Just take your time and remember to read each of these instructions carefully before you plug in a number, and these drop-down menus do help when you do your math. Just check your balances, and don't forget these numbers are doubled from your Social Security and from your Medicare. So go ahead and finish this problem and move to the on your own problem.